5 children of her own, she knew what kids were supposed to develop like. Well, as you may or may not know, mommy number 2 comes along, babies, when they first learn to walk, they stick their butt up in the air, and then they stand up until they can learn to squat and they have balance. They do that till they're about 2. I was doing that at 4 and 5 years old. And my grandma said, something's wrong here. As a child, I shivered all the time, so they were always wrapping me in blankets. In reality, I just have a tremor. But they didn't know. My little chin was shaking, and like, oh, she's cold. So they wrapped me up a lot as a child. I fell down all the time. I still fall. It's much harder as you get older. And they thought, my grandma thought, oh, well, maybe she has an inner ear problem. Balance, you know. So she took me to the ear doctor, and he says, you're right, there's something wrong with her, but it's not her ears. You might want to take her to a neurologist. Okay. So off to the neurologist we go. The neurologist has his own sets of tests where he's like, oh, don't let me pull, don't let me push, all kinds of basically strength tests. He says, you're right, there's something wrong with her. And I think it's right here. They didn't know what it was. So, at the ripe old age of 5, they decided to give me a biopsy. I don't know if you know what this is, but I'm going to give you the 5-year-old version. They strapped me down, ripped open a big section like this in my leg, and took a piece of muscle out of it.
Oh my God.
It wasn't really that bad. That was just my 5-year-old interpretation. Because I didn't get put to sleep, so I remember every excruciating detail of this happening. And of course they numb it. I mean, it's not torture or anything. But they do numb it, but at 5, they're like, I can feel it! And now, you know, I'm traumatized still. I remember it. Coincidentally, from there, they did take a little, it literally is the size of a baby pea. They take the tiny little sample, they send it off to people who look at it under microscopes for about 6 months, and then they come back with their answer. Aha! We know what's wrong with you. You have spinal muscular atrophy type 3. Now let's talk about that. Spinal, there is absolutely nothing wrong with my back. And if you want to stay on my good side, don't ever come up and go, how's your back? I'll say, it's fine. Are you offering to give me a massage? It's only called spinal muscular atrophy because that's where your nerves run. They run through your spine. Muscular, meaning I am skinny. I don't have muscles. It's not that I don't have food. I just don't have muscles. Spinal muscular atrophy. All of the muscles in my body are getting weaker every single day. In layman's terms, we'll say there's a spot right here at the base of my spine. It's like a spigot or a tap, and it's just not turned on all the way. So not very much nutrients are going into my body. So my muscles are kind of starving to death. Good news. I know, you're like, what? Good news, there's no pain. I literally am like every single one of you, assuming you don't have pain. I don't have any medication. I don't ache anywhere unless I get older, which is constantly my problem now because I am getting older. And I think, oh, my hip's sore. Is it my disability or is that age? I don't know. My phases were as a child, I was told by doctors on a somewhat daily, weekly, monthly basis, oh, you'll never be able to. Let's start with the first one. Oh, you'll never be able to ride a bike. It's kind of funny because I already ride a bike. Not really sure how to interpret that. Meaning at some point, will I not be able to ride my bike? He says, how do you ride a bike? I go, I sit on it. Kind of like everyone else. I thought I was doing it right. I mean, I go from point A to point B. Next one. Oh, you'll never be able to roller skate. Now I'm going to show my age and tell you the days when we used to strap on the metal skates on the outside of our shoes. That's where I started. Eventually I graduated into I owned my own boot roller skate with glitter laces. And he says, you'll never be able to roller skate. I said, that's funny, because I already do. He says, how do you roller skate? Well, I push off with one foot, push off with the other. I kind of do it like everybody else does, I thought. I mean, I get from point A to point B. Skating's different though, we fall down a lot. And so many bumps and bruises and scrapes. Next one. Oh, you'll never be able to jump rope. Well, that's kind of funny, because I already did. How do you jump rope? I go, well, I swing it and I step with my foot to the other arm. I can't jump, but I step. I kind of do it like everyone else does it. I don't know what you're talking about. This happened for so many years. I finally got to the point where I'm like, I don't believe a single thing you say. No offense, doc. And it kind of translated in my life in general. I don't believe a doctor just because he says this. I don't believe a principal because he says, I know you adults don't know what the hell you're talking about. So it's kind of interesting that it was training for me in life just to not believe other people. But mostly in terms of limitations. Don't tell me what I'll never be able to do. As I got older, I worried. How am I going to have a baby? Actually, it went more like this. Oh shit, I'm pregnant. How am I going to have a baby? I was in college, you know, you see the correlation, pregnant in college. And I was worried. So I visited my neurologist, who was a pediatric neurologist, and I was now 21. But I'm not getting a new doctor after all these years of seeing the same pediatric neurologist. So I visited him and told him I was pregnant, and I said, so what am I going to be able to do? Am I going to be able to carry the baby full term? Am I going to be able to deliver? He says, you know what, I stopped telling you years ago. I said, okay, but I'm a little worried. Am I going to be able to? He goes, you will figure it out as we go. And it was very difficult because I was scared, mostly scared about, am I going to give this thing, this horrible thing I would never wish on my worst enemy, am I going to give this to my child? We did the whole hybrid chart. He's unaffected, you're affected, with a 25% chance of this, 50% chance. We don't know. We'll find out when the time comes. The good news, here we are, good news again. The good news is I managed to walk through my whole pregnancy. I gained 50% of my body weight. And I say that because it wasn't a big number, since I don't weigh much. But just imagine your weight divided in half and put that on your body and carry it with you every day. And have atrophying muscles. It's hard to carry all this around. Oh. The other interesting thing is, as a child, they determined at 6 what I had. At 6 years old, I was told, you will be in a wheelchair by the time you're 12. I thought, oh, I have a lot to do between now and 12. I've already ridden a bike, roller skated, and jump rope, so I got that done. Then at around 11, things weren't going downhill. He says, oh, well, you might be in a wheelchair by the time you're 14. Well, you might be in a wheelchair by the time you're 16. Definitely by the time you're 18 or 19 years old, you'll definitely be in, well, maybe by the time you're 21, in your mid to late 20s. I'm certain in your early 30s. Okay, I got it. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Every day I live with this. I will probably one day be in a wheelchair, but if you notice, I walk okay. I'm still doing pretty good. What I'm trying to express is, it's been a constant, everyday obstacle. The thing that I learned at 5 years old is, don't let other people tell you you'll never be able to. Don't let people say, oh, you'll never be as good a speaker as Ann. Oh, you'll never be able to do that marathon. Don't let people tell you what you'll never be able to do. If I had done that, I would have never done the roller skating, the biking, all these things. Take each day, be glad that you are able to do